Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Land of Brand Laboratory, or as we like to call it for short, the LOBoratory. This is Holly Chantal, the founder of the Land of Brand and your lead Mad Brand scientist today. And if you've never joined us before, we meet every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, and we talk about different topics in branding, specifically how to build a brand that is a unique expression of your personality and positions you strategically in the marketplace. So every week we bring you a new experiment, which is something that you can try with your brand in order to build something as unique as possible. And we talk about what works, what doesn't work, and sometimes we'll even run our own experiments and even share numbers from the Land of Brand of exactly what we are doing and the results that we're getting. And of course, we also love to hear from you because this is a free community. So community means that you are welcome to share your viewpoints, your questions, what's working for you, what's not working for you, to benefit the good of the group because we really love to get a discussion going. And today's topic is a little bit more esoteric than usual. Usually we're giving you very step-by-step advice or strategies that you can go take and implement right now. And today we're going to be talking about stereotypes and how you can use them in your brand to create, to control the first impression that people have of you, which is kind of it's more of a soft topic. So let's go ahead and switch over to the presentation. And if you have any questions as we're going along, or if you have anything you'd like to add, you can do so in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. And just so you know, there is a little bit of a delay between me talking and you actually hearing what I'm saying. So make sure that you type them in early so that I'll see them at the end. All right, just checking, making sure everything is working properly. All right, looks good. All right. So today is how stereotypes can be an asset to your brand. So your brand is basically the perception of your business. I just want to say that from the get-go because a lot of people when they're thinking of brand, they're thinking of a logo, colors, a website design, all of those visual pieces that come with a brand, as well as the slogans, the taglines, but basically catchy, memorable things. But really what your brand is how someone perceives your business and or how the community as a whole perceives your business. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? And that is something that you have a lot of control over and to a point you don't have control over. We're going to talk a little bit about how to control this perception from start to finish. So it begins with your marketing materials, the information and the content that you are putting out into the world. So that's where someone first becomes aware of you. That is the first impression, typically. Then it also continues through your website and your keep in touch strategy. Your website may also be the first impression, so you want to make sure that everything is consistent. And then the perception ends with the work you do with clients. So the actual work that you're doing with clients, the results that they're getting, their experience with you is all affecting their perception of your business. And then they go out into the world and they talk about that experience. And these are the pieces you can control. So you control the marketing materials, you control what's on your website, you control what's on your keep in touch strategy, and you control the experience that you are giving when you're working with clients. And there's strategies behind all of these. So being strategic about these pieces will help you build a reputation. So when you're able to be in control, you're going to build a reputation for being reliable, or producing quality work, or for having a unique way of doing things, so your unique message and your unique methodology. You're also going to become known as the go-to person in your field. So you want to make sure that all of these pieces from a client's first impression of you all the way to the last impression of actually working with you and then going and talking to their friends is consistent. So those are the pieces you can control, and you want to make sure that you are being and presenting the same way as you would from start to finish. So would you agree that your impression of someone when you first meet them can be very different than after you get to know them? So even if you are consistent in your marketing and consistent with your website and your keep in touch and consistent in delivering the end product, the first impression someone gets of you may be different than the last impression. So you make snap judgments when you meet someone. You make snap judgments based on previous experiences you've had with people like them, and like them speaks to being a stereotype. You build a relationship with someone and you become more comfortable with someone, you're obviously going to act and behave differently. That experience is going to become different. If you're getting along with that person really well, the experience will be a lot different than if you are kind of clashing or have some kind of personality disconnect. The impression that you're going to be giving to people is going to be different depending on the relationship that you're building with them, depending on their past experiences and their expectations. And your job is to make choices on how you want to be perceived and how you're going to get that perception across, and then do the best you can to stay consistent. But it's not always going to be so cut and dry. But if we raise the conversation and have you thinking about these things, you're going to be better off than if you are completely inconsistent and people's expectations are not being met, or they are kind of being thrown for a loop halfway through your marketing and not really understanding who you are. Because if someone is confused about you, they're not going to want to hire you. So you want the process to be a way to get to know you. But it always starts with that first impression. So we all use stereotypes. Stereotypes being basically these little deposits of information that you draw from. There are, mass media names for stereotypes like hipsters, which is the new hippie, nerds, geeks, jocks. Those are all different types of stereotypes from the mass media. And they're labels, basically, that we use to label these categories of people. But you also form your own stereotypes, and basically all a stereotype is something that's repeatable, something that you've seen over and over again and had a set of experiences tied to that. And your past experiences with people that dress a certain way, people that act a certain way, websites that look a certain way, you draw on those experiences and you basically form these opinions about those types of people or those types of websites based on the experience you had. So stereotypes are actually just these little bits of information. It's kind of like your database of how you interpret the world. And when you meet something unfamiliar or you see something unfamiliar, you make a snap judgment based on those past experiences and experiences in what you've seen in the media and how they've influenced your kind of way of looking at things. So if it's that simple, really a stereotype is just a piece of information that you've gained from past experiences or something you've learned. Why don't we like them? Well, for one, the word stereotype in general has a negative connotation. And I think it's because we don't like being put into boxes. Most people don't like to be labeled. Actually, we'll say many people don't like to be labeled because in high school, some people were really proud to be the jock. Others are really proud to be the geek. They're proud of their stereotypes. So it doesn't always have a negative connotation. But in general, we're not really into being labeled because we are unique beings. Each of us has a unique personality. Each of us has a unique way of looking at the world. And to be put into a box along with everyone else that dresses the way we do or looks the way we do or is selling the same things we are can feel very limiting. And we also don't like to admit to making snap judgments. So we don't want to admit to judging books by their covers, but it's something that we all do because it's how we're wired. And, thinking about it, if, salespeople have a stereotype to be pushy or to be, um, annoying, not really sensitive to my needs, those kinds of things, I don't want to be labeled as a salesperson, so I could definitely see why a stereotype would be negative. But you can actually play with that initial perception and the kind of society norm for the stereotype that you may or may not fit into, because that's going to be someone's first impression of you, but you can influence it. So let's talk about that. So if you were to put yourself into a category, what would it be? So for instance, uh, let's see. So when I first started my business, I was 25. Um, I was a baby, and some of you may be listening to this going, "You still are a baby," even though I just turned 30. So I've been in business for 5 years, and the first impression when you see me is that this young girl, how is she? She looks inexperienced. She looks um, like, how would she know how to help me in my business? And this is actually a question that I get quite a bit. Is, I have 20 years experience in my industry. How are you going to be able to help me being so young? So that's a stereotype, and that's actually a negative stereotype. I could also talk to you about some positive stereotypes, but for argument's sake, let's talk about something where someone is a little bit skeptical of you. So the next question is, does that match what someone would expect in your industry? So being very young and inexperienced as a stereotype, not really what someone would expect in the coaching world. And this can still work in my favor. So yes, the first impression is that I don't look as experienced because of my age. But I can go against that perception by providing fantastic content, by presenting myself in a professional manner, by giving information that does influence people that have been in the industry for 20 years. And what you do is you create a kind of this dichotomy. You create something that's surprising to someone, and that gets them talking. That changes the perception and actually almost has more of an impact than if they expected it from you. So no matter what stereotype you fit into, and you might fit into multiples, no matter what stereotype you fit into, it can work in your favor, whether it's kind of counterproductive or right in alignment with what you want. Another example, going kind of the positive side of things, this is kind of a minor stereotype, but it still is a good example. So my husband is he's in construction management. He's a project engineer, and he wears these thick black glasses. And whenever anyone sees them, they call them architect glasses. You look like an architect or an engineer. And so he looks. It makes people think that he's very smart right away. And when he interviews for jobs, people take him more seriously because he has these architect glasses and he looks the part. He looks like he fits in that industry. He looks like he kind of nerds out about drawings and the type of engineering that he's doing. So it actually works in his advantage that someone sees him and he is what they expect in that role, and then his job is just to live up to that. And in that way, you can still wow someone because when someone meets your expectations or exceeds them, that still is worth noting. Because there's a lot of times where you might see someone that looks fantastic. They look like a fantastic fit for what you're looking for, but they don't meet that expectation. So as long as you are staying in alignment, and this is where you want to be consistent throughout your experience with someone, you can You can wow them by matching the stereotype, and you can also wow them by going against the stereotype. So I hope this kind of demonstrates kind of the both sides of the story. So in conclusion, stereotypes are here to stay whether we like them or not, because they are basically how we all interpret the world based on our past experiences. You can influence, that's the key word, influence the perception by applying into or away from a stereotype. You can't control a perception because it's always going to be based on the person's experiences, and what you may think they are experiencing could be different than their actual, the way they're seeing things. And either way, you want to get people talking about how awesome you are. So whether you are playing into a stereotype or away from a stereotype, you want to make an impact and you want to deliver an experience that is unique and that will get people talking. So that is my experiment on stereotyping. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the box. I doubt we're going to have any questions because this was kind of, like I said, one of those soft topics, something that's a little more about thinking bigger and thinking differently around branding and your place in the world, and not so much, a how-to or something that would lend well to those kinds of questions. But if you have anything or anything to add, please do type them into the chat box. And in the meantime, next week we're going to be talking about the productivity cycle, an easy method for getting beep, beep done. So if you are feeling overwhelmed or you know you have a lot of things that you need to implement that you're not, then next week we're going to be talking about how to get stuff done, how to kind of move past that, chunk things down, and create a plan for yourself that you can execute so that you are more productive. All right, so that is all for today. I will see you all next Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, and I hope you have a fantastic, fantastic week. Bye.